Thank you, Andre. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Dzień dobry. My name is Alan, and just to be clear, I am from the independent European Republic of Scotland. And in 3 years' time, when everything has gone to hell in a handbasket, and Scotland is begging to come back into the European Union, just remember these two things. We have half the oil and all the whiskey. You will let us back in. Do you promise? Yeah? Thank you very much indeed. Deal done. I shall report back to the government tomorrow. That's done. So I'm here to talk about something that doesn't get too much conversation at fundraising conferences. So I was saying I'm going to talk about something that I've noticed has not been talked about a lot at fundraising conferences. We spend a lot of time talking about donors. We spend a lot of time telling beneficiary stories. But the fundraiser themselves doesn't generally get much attention. And certainly not much attention beyond fairly short-term techniques. Does this work better than this? Does this work better than that? So by way of context, I had a bit of a career change. So in the 1980s, I was sponsored by the Ministry of Defence in the UK to become a weapons engineer. Yeah? That was a bad decision. Okay? For a number of reasons. One, if I'd ever taken the job, which I never did, I studied it, but I never did it, you would have to live underground. It was really dull. You would never get to travel anywhere. And there were no women whatsoever, yeah, in my course, which makes for a rubbish career. And you're probably going to make the world a worse place. So thankfully, I was made redundant by the events of 1989, 1990, which was a good thing. And I looked for a career where you could travel a bit more, you could make the world a better place, you didn't have to live underground, and where there would at least be a few women in the profession. And I found professional fundraising. It's kind of ideal, which means I've been doing it for 30 years. What we do is three things now. I won't detail my career, but right now we study successful and growing fundraising organizations. And we have a team of academics which do that. We teach and train them, particularly boards and senior management teams, how to become a great fundraising organization. And thirdly, we then support organizations in achieving it. But it's the first bit, it's the research that's interesting. There are big behavioral differences between organizations which make a lot more money and ones that don't. And that was the subject of a masterclass we did yesterday. But we now have so much data over such a long period of time that we can now look at the behavior of fundraisers who not only individually change the income of their organization, but have an impact on the world during their career. And that is quite interesting. Hands up who would like to look back at the end of their career and say, I went 30 years and I balanced the budget every single year. I'd quite like to do that, but nobody's jumping up and down with enthusiasm. How many people would like to know you're going to die 5 minutes before you die and to know in your head and your heart, do you know what? The world is a better place now than it was 5 minutes after I was born, and that had something to do with me. Hands up if you would quite like to enjoy that feeling. Hands up if you would like to know a day before and the people you did it with were having a drink with you at the time. Yeah, yeah, that would be the complete winner, and they all give you a round of applause and carted you off. That would be good. Well, we're lucky enough to be looking at this long enough now that we know the behaviors of the fundraisers that achieve that. The fundraisers that actually change the world. Can I give you one insight? So I thought there's two things I could do. I could either present you the data, which would make for probably the most boring opening plenary of a fundraising conference ever, or we could just summarize a few of the behaviors. So I'm going to do the second and just summarize a few of the behaviors. One of the most strange but really exciting introverts is the personality type of the great fundraiser. There's an assumption that great fundraisers are like salespeople or like marketing people, and therefore an outgoing, enthusiastic, extrovert personality is necessary. And in organizations that don't know fundraising well, that's the only place they look for fundraisers. Now, on a fundraising team, you do need extrovert people. People who can go to cocktail parties and enjoy them. Yeah? People who can coffee with a complete stranger and say, I'm going to come and see you in a week and ask you for money. Yeah? We need to have those people, but when we look at the great fundraisers, the ones who changed the world, more than half of them are introverts. More than half of them are just quiet, determined people, rather than being the noisy ones that fill a room or need lots of people to get their energy from. And that was a fascinating insight. And it was on that insight that I went back into all our organizational data and started to pull out the behavior of the fundraisers. Yeah? Here is a really interesting insight. When you look at organizations that have grown over 10, 20, 30 years and dramatically changed the world, they grow in a very particular way. And this is why the seminar is called A New Ambition. Our research says quite clearly that these organizations grew like this. You know? None of them had a 30-year plan to have 2% compounded growth in a smooth curve or a straight line over 30 years. A few of them spent 3 years trying to write that plan, yeah? But nobody ever executed it, nobody nowhere ever. So as we talked about in the masterclass yesterday, the organizations seem to do this. On the day we are founded, there's something wrong with the world, and a group of people get really excited and say, there's a real problem in the world, we've got to do something about it and help everybody who's got that problem. We've got one objective, we're all really fired up, and the first thing we do is fundraising. And because we're new and we're enthusiastic and we're not worried about the case for support or the press or brand or anything like that, we just go out and raise some money and we get going. And then it gets to be complicated because people say we need to become professional. So we start to add lots of complexity to something really simple. And we get better at what we do, but the focus and energy dissipates because we're so worried about the complexity of being professional that easy enthusiasm goes away. And then what happens is someone comes along and says, this is all getting a bit complicated and it's all a bit tiring. What we need to do is make it simple, focused, energized, and fresh again. And then it goes boom, and then we get another big rise in income, and then we grow and we add more people, so we need more systems, more procedures, more budgeting, we get a bit more tired and confused again. And then somebody else comes along and says, this is getting a bit tiring and confusing. If we want to grow, we need to make it simple and make it feel like the day we started again, so we help everybody, and the first thing we have to do is fundraising, and off we go, boom, and grow. And all the organizations, and we can study 100 years of data for some of them, grew like this. Big surge of energy, big surge of energy, big surge of energy, all of them. Okay? It's quite tiring changing the world. So what I decided to look at was in the organizations where we could access the data, who was the person that said, we're all a bit tired and confused, let's make it simple again, and let's get lots of energy back. Well, here, it was the person who founded the organization. And 9 times out of 10, the person who founded the organization was a brilliant fundraiser. Because it's very difficult to found an organization if you're not a brilliant fundraiser. Because the first thing you need to do is get some money. But what we looked at quite clearly is even in the big global mega NGOs, the person, when the organization got a bit tired and confused here, they stood up and said, we need to make it simple. We need to get the energy back again. We need the focus. 9 times out of 10, it was the fundraiser. Why is that? Because it appears to be the fundraiser inside an organization that is the driver of organizational ambition. The other departments are drivers of organizational quality. We're really good at what we do, we're really good at systems and money, but the person that's the driver of the ambition, we're not good enough yet, almost seems to be the fundraiser. And this appears to be a personality thing. So my prime message is that although the public statement of ambition is often frowned upon in the non-profit NGO charitable sector as being a bit tasteless, or as a Scottish word, uncouth. If you're ambitious, you're a bit rough. Yeah? It's kind of frowned upon. Ambition, of course, is essential if an organization is going to grow and change the world. You're not going to grow and change the world without some kind of ambition. And if an organization is looking to refresh the ambition of the whole organization, where it should look at is its fundraiser. Because the fundraiser is an odd beast. Yeah? A fundraiser has to be driven every week, month, quarter, year by short-term financial targets. Yeah? Some of us like salespeople, some of us like marketing people. We have to be driven by that. And we have to get a dopamine hit out of meeting this month's money or this quarter's money. And if we don't get excited by hitting our targets, we're not going to be very good fundraisers. Yeah? But in our sector, if you hit your quarterly targets, you don't get sent to San Moritz for a ski holiday to say thank you. Yeah? Nobody buys you 48 bottles of Zubrovka because you've got your targets for the year. Yeah? You need to get the satisfaction from somewhere else. And if you look at these great fundraisers, their satisfaction was knowing all the time that that quarterly money, that 6 month, that annual target was moving us towards the mission. And this is where the introverts came to the fore, because they didn't need that external praise for hitting the short-term targets. They just needed to know we're 1 more month towards the mission. We're just 3 more months. We're just 6 more months towards the mission. So being driven by the mission of the organization appears to be the long-term incentive of all the greatest fundraisers. But they combine that with the ability to behave like highly energized and determined sales and marketing people in the short term, which sounds like a conflict unless you understand how that all lines up, which is what I'm going to present back to you today. Would that be of interest? Or put it another way, ladies and gentlemen, spend the rest of the conference talking about other people. For now, we're talking about you. Okay? Isn't that nice for a change? Let's do that. So it's called a new ambition, because when the organization gets tired and confused, it's the fundraiser who stands up and says, okay, we've done quite well. We're good at our projects. We're helping some of the people that need to be helped, but we haven't helped them all yet. What's next? The first thing they have to do to start fundraising growth is get the board to invest. The board invest, then there's a period of investment time, then fundraising grows, and then it stops again. What you need to do to get the board to invest is a big goal for them to invest towards. Let's pop that in the chart there and call it the blue dot, or the new ambition. So here's something interesting about human beings. We need to anticipate either serotonin or dopamine in order to be motivated or inspired to do something. Inspiration or motivation is the anticipation of a dopamine hit. Yeah? A dopamine hit is not a reward for having done something well. We don't get excited about the prospect of doing something well. A dopamine hit is nature's reward to us for having overcome our own fear. A dopamine hit is how we feel good about ourselves about having been brave. I was scared of something, I did it anyway, and that's how I feel good about myself. So that is why having the same mission for 30 years doesn't work, because we get a dopamine hit, we go after that idea, and then when it tires off, if we go back to the same thing again, it's not new, it's not exciting, it's not scary, therefore there is no danger, there is no feeling of fear involved with it, there is no anticipation of dopamine, and therefore it is not inspiring. However, if we constantly have lots of different missions, then we have mission creep and we don't achieve it, because we move around for all the thing. So here's the first art of the great fundraiser. Is they were real experts at having lots and lots and lots of fresh new ideas, different exciting ideas that all said the same thing. Yeah? So taking the same dream, the same ambition for the organization, and having the ability to say it in a new way which felt exciting and a bit dangerous, so that people got fired up and felt inspired to put the focus and energy in to grow the organization again. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
How do we make it scary again? How do we make it scary again? Yeah? That's what the great fundraisers do. How do we make it scary again? Yeah, I think I might write a book about that. How do we make it scary again? Oh, I know, elect the wrong people. No, let's not go there. Let's not go there. It was all going so nicely until that happened, but never mind. And what the greatest fundraisers do is they realise when the organisation is getting a bit safe or a bit tired and a bit confused, and they deliberately do it again by setting a new ambition, which makes it inspiring, which means making it scary again for the rest of the organisation, the imperative to get on with it. And the greatest fundraisers could anticipate when this was happening and have their new idea before it even went flat again. But they were the really good ones. They were the really, really good ones. Because approaching this point is actually scary, but it's a different kind of scary than that kind of scary. Does that make sense to you? Yeah. So creating the new ambition is the job of the fundraiser. Raising the bar, if you're a high jumper. Yeah? That's what fundraisers do in all organizations. There's 3 things that any organization that dramatically grew its fundraising had in place. The first one was a scientific plan about the money. It's really important, it's logical, it's rational, it's analysed, and it's a different seminar. Okay? Second is the culture. It's the whole of the organisation thought donors were brilliant people. They knew what donors needed in return from their gift, and they gave that to the fundraising department to give it to their donors. They didn't say donors should give to something else. They didn't say, oh, we're too busy to do brilliant stuff for donors. They did it, and they did it brilliantly, so that fundraising could do stuff brilliant for donors, so donors gave over and over again until they died, and then they gave once more. Okay? Oh, it's the greatest sales job in the world. We're the only people that keep selling after our customers die. Yeah? It's brilliant. What a luxury. And then the third thing that every organisation that dramatically grew its fundraising had was the new ambition, this big idea that made it scary again, that made it exciting, that made it simple, that made it focused, that made it energised. And isn't it interesting that making something simple, focused and energised, more than half the people that did that were introverts? Yeah? Keep holding on to that, because I'll tell you why right at the very end. I'm not going to tell you that one right at the very beginning, am I? That would waste a considerable amount of time. So here's my summary. Great fundraisers are pretty awesome people. Yeah? They're pretty exceptional. Average fundraisers are average people, but the greats really are a bit special. The ones that truly change the world. And what's more, is look at my data, I believe it can be learned and trained. Yeah? I don't think it's a natural thing. It's quite hard work and it takes a very long time. Yeah? Oh, would you like to know another study I did? We did a study of inspirational speeches done over the whole of history. And we tried to see how many different types of inspirational speech there are. There's only one. Yeah? All inspirational speeches say exactly the same thing. None of them say, this is going to be easy, don't worry about it, it'll be no problem. All inspirational speeches say, we're about to do something that's really important. It's going to be really hard, but imagine how we'll feel afterwards. Yeah? That's what they all say. The character of a country changes them somewhat. In England, with the Henry V speech, they say, we're about to have a fight with the French again. Yeah? And some of us are going to get some scars on our arms, but in 5 years' time we can show our scars in the pub and everyone will think we're really cool. Yeah? That's basically what the Henry V speech says. Yeah? In Scotland, we're much more pragmatic, and we're taught this at school. And it basically says, right, class, we're about to have a fight with the English again. Okay? This is basically history, is just dead simple. But our one starts with Scots wha hae wi Wallace bled, Scots wha Bruce has aften led, welcome to your gory bed, or to victory. So our most inspiring speech is, welcome! Today we're going to have a fight with the English again. By lunchtime, half of you will be dead. But the other half can feel quite good about yourselves. Shall we start? It's most ridiculous. So nobody inspiring ever said this is going to be easy. What do you think would have happened in the United States of America if Martin Luther King had said, I have a plan? Yeah? And thank you for coming here. I think we should take a couple of days to workshop our strategic goals and have a strategic way of achieving equality in the United States of America. Yeah? It's going to be really hard. It's really important. It's going to be really hard to imagine how you would feel afterwards. That's what great fundraisers are good at saying, because the most focused and energized organization wins every time, And the ability to create focus and energy in an organization is not someone writing a strategy, it's not someone doing a health and safety policy, it's not someone doing a data audit, it's somebody saying, we're going to do something really important, it's going to be really hard, it's going to take a really long time, but imagine how we will feel afterwards. And 9 times out of 10, that person is you, the fundraiser. Okay? Over and over again until you retire or die. Okay?